Hello, the Pioneer viewers. How are you doing? I hope you're healthy and well. Today, we will continue to provide the latest data on the Russia-Ukraine war. Today, the front line was very active, so much so that the Russian Air Force lost 3 fighter jets in just one day. This is a very serious number, and we will discuss this in our reports on the agenda. There are intense clashes on the front line. As you know, mobility on the Kherson front line had decreased for a while. However, mobility has started again. The Donetsk frontline clashes, which have been going on for a long time, also continue. You remember what we said about the Donetsk frontline. Here, the Russian armed forces were able to advance only in meters. Despite such intense attacks, the inability of the Russian army to advance causes big problems. So, what is the latest situation on the front line? Let's take a look at the developments together. As the Pioneer team, we continue to bring the Russia-Ukraine war to your screens. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. You can also support me and my team by using the super thanks button below the video. Thank you for all your supports. Let's start if you are ready. The Pioneer reports. Let's start our report by analyzing the latest developments on the Kherson front line. Let's take a look at the Kherson front line on the map. There is an established situation here. There were attacks by the Ukrainian armed forces in the direction of Krinky. These attacks are still continuing. According to the latest information from local sources, clashes and intense fighting continue, especially in the direction of Krinky. Especially in the forested area here, there are very important things happening. It is claimed that the experienced Russian troops are used in these forested areas. However, we have not been able to confirm this. Therefore, Russian losses here are quite high. However, we see that the Ukrainian troops have been continuing in a stable line here for a while. The reason for this is obvious: to wear down the Russian troops in the region until the next counterattack. Therefore, the Ukrainian army does not make more deliveries to the region. A war of attrition is being waged against the Russian troops within the available means. In this region, the Ukrainian armed forces also have a disadvantage in the terms of armored vehicles. Actually, it would not be correct to call it a disadvantage because, as we have already mentioned, the Ukrainian army has already turned the struggle into a war of attrition. Therefore, the armored vehicles of the Ukrainian army generally do not cross the east bank of the Dnieper River. Of course, in this case, the Ukrainian armed forces do not make any new advances. Let me say it again. At the moment, the most important struggle of the Ukrainian troops here is to wear down the units of the Russian armed forces stations in the region. Now let's continue by analyzing the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted positions of the Ukrainian armed forces in the Kherson, Dnipropetrovsk, Volotensky, Kizmois, and Antonivka. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted positions of the Russian armed forces deployed in the direction of Olapristan, Kardashiinka, Pilditsny, Oleshki, Kokhani, and Valetka Kardashiinka, and Pechenivka and Poima. Let's continue by looking at the latest developments on the Zaporizhia front line. We have known for some time that the Russian armed forces have been attacking west of Robotny. Today, these attacks continued in the area. However, the defense of the Ukrainian armed forces here has been very strong since the first day. Therefore, the Ukrainian armed forces, with the support of artillery units, managed to repel the attacks of the Russian armed forces. Another point in Verbov, according to the latest reports, Ukrainian troops in this area were reactivated and carried out a series of offensives and reconnaissance operations in the direction of Verbov. Although it is claimed that a large number of Russian armed forces personnel and the Russian armored vehicles were destroyed during these operations, we have not yet been able to confirm this information. Therefore, it should be noted that the border line in the region remains stable for the time being. Let us continue with the artillery activities in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted positions of the Ukrainian armed forces deployed in the directions of Robotny, Malaitokmakcha, Novodanilivka, Novoandriivka, Malysherebiyaki, Pyatykhatki, and Lobkov. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted positions of the Russian armed forces in the direction of Nestryanka, Kopani, Novopokrovka, Ichenko, Solatka Balka, Verbov, and Novofedoryovka. Let's continue our report by analyzing the latest situation on the Donetsk front line. According to the latest reports, on the Donetsk front line, on the southern and southeastern outskirts of the Novomikhailovka, there are quite furious counter-battles. Here we see that the positions of the Ukrainian armed forces are surrounded on 3 fronts. However, the Ukrainian armed forces do not want to leave the settlements, despite the circumstances and encirclements of these positions from these 3 sides. To the west of Mariinka, the Russian armed forces have launched attacks in Nevelskoye, Permovskoye, Tonikoye, and Severnoye. However, no results have been obtained so far in these attacks. On the other hand, the Russian armed forces appear to have attacks in Avdiivka itself from the southeast, from the industrial area, and from the east of Kocheryi-Kabalka from the northeast near the coke factory. Many local sources confirm these reports. However, we have not yet found any confirmed information about the change of demarcation line. There are also reports that the Russian armed forces have carried out offensive actions in the Stepnoy and Orechetin areas. It is possible to speak of a limited advance of the Russian armed forces in the Orechetin region. Apart from this, no significant change has taken place in the region yet. Let's continue with the artillery activity in the region. According to the latest reports, artillery units of the Russian armed forces targeted positions of the Ukrainian armed forces in the directions of Nevelsky, Permovsky, Krasnohorivka, Pobeda, Novomikhailovka, Kharkivka, Severny, and Avdiivka. In turn, artillery units of the Ukrainian armed forces targeted units of the Russian armed forces deployed in Volyadny, Pitsky, Opitny, Staromikhailivka, Marinka, and the center of Donetsk. Let's continue by looking at the latest situation on the Bakhmut front line. According to the latest reports, in the Bakhmut direction, the Russian armed forces carried out offensive operations in the hills northwest of Klishchiivka, near Ivanivsky, in the Khoromov and Bogdanivka area. However, Russian attacks in these areas seems to have been largely repelled. On the other hand, there was another area that became active. Russian troops from the direction of Brestovoye advanced towards Vimilivka. The offensive continues in the motorway area. However, there are also informations that the Russian casualties were high during these offensives. There is also a movement on the Luhansk front. According to the latest reports, on the Luhansk front line, the Russian armed forces managed to capture new positions on the outskirts of Sinkiivka. However, we can say that these positions do not have a strategic importance for the moment. What do you think? Do you think the Ukrainian army will succeed in implementing its strategy on the Kherson front line? What do you think about the latest situation on the Donetsk front line? Is there a possibility that the Ukrainian army will take control of the region? Let me know in the comments. I read and care about all your comments.